The mystery of Ricky Nelson is finally over. And it's not good that. Ricky Nelson was born. Eric Hilliard Nelson was born on May 8, 1940, teen from New Jersey, is the son of AZ and Harriet Nelson, two well-known at the time. Ricky was singing, almost born into show business he was steeped in the world from a very young age. Of entertainment, showing up with his family on the longwave radio and in the later TV show The Adventures of Harriet and AZ, a show that wrote about the daily lives of the Nelson family and became an important part of during the 1950s. American families and early 1960s, he grew up in front of millions of people watched. Ricky's charm, beauty and natural skill made him quickly became a crowd favorite, but Nelson is not like many other child actors. It was possible to break free from the limiting picture of a star from a family sitcom by pursuing a very successful music career during a time when rock and roll was older people still see as controversial through the years. Ricky Nelson became as one of its most prestigious and long-lasting. He recorded his first single, I'm on Foot, in 1957, a cover of Fats Domino's hit, and it quickly rose to the top of the charts. This came out not only at the start of his second job as a rock and roll singer, but he also made a name for himself as his own teen idol in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Ricky Nelson kept racking up awards in the 1960s, hit after hit with songs like Hello Mary Man on the Road, Lou, Poor Little Fool, Lonesome Town and It's Late are two of his smoothest songs. A nice voice and a clean look help people get into rock music. He became famous among regular people and got a strong fan base. He was one of the first teen stars to usually show up on national rock. Music was first heard on TV. Million Americans in their daily lives' rooms, a trend that pointed to the Beatles and other bands that came after. He had already made a lot of money by age 21 of records and had turned into one of the best-selling male solo artists of his time. But Ricky Nelson's work doesn't come with the same problems as musical tastes. Things started to change in the middle of the 1960s. Nelson had a hard time keeping his spot at the top of the charts. Instead of to keep up with changing styles, he chose to change artistically by going into a more grown-up country rock sound. This move, which led to the formation of the Stone Canyon Band, is a group that can help first artists to play country rock music, later used by artists such as Eagles. In 1972, he put out the Think About the single Garden Party that transformed into a huge comeback hit by the disappointing response he got at a show in Madison Square Garden. People only wanted to hear his old hits. The song was an angry anthem about honesty in art and personal. To be honest, it was a powerful message. You can't make everyone happy, so you need to make yourself happy. Besides his amazing success as a Ricky Nelson is a recording artist who having a big impact on the world of movies and TV shows that show off his talented in many areas, both as an actor and singer. His career on screen began in 1952 with The Happily Married Family. The movie Here Come the Nelsons is a comedy that took advantage of his famous family's liking things. After a year, Nelson took a small but important part in the story of Three Loves 1953, made by MGM and directed by This movie stars the famous Vincente Minnelli. Nelson played the part of the character of Farley Greer, showing his early talent for making characters come to life on the big screen as Nelsons. Because of his music, he became very popular. Work history and the popular TV show The Tales of AZ and Harriet. The skills caught the eye of major directors in Hollywood. One of the most important events in his life making movies began in 1959. When the famous director Howard Hawks pushed him to play a gunslinger in the western Rio Bravo, starring with big names like John Wayne and Dean Martin. Nelson's part brought new life to the film, and Hawks himself gave Nelson's magnetic presence as an important part of the movie's huge success at the box office. Nash kept working on his acting. Share the screen with To Get Back to Work. Renowned stars. In 1960, he co-starred with the charming Jack Lemmon in The Strangest Ship in the Army, a funny war movie that became well known enough but it could lead to a TV show. Nelson himself did not say nice things about his job for the small screen. Always ready to search for different roles, he played as a guest spots on shows like General Electric Theater, where his show The Wish Book showed off his acting skills. Besides his music fame in 1965, Nelson played the lead part in Love Kisses and was a romantic comedy that was a unique family project written, and he was in charge of his father AZ Nelson. The Jack Kelly was also in the movie, and let Ricky mix up his acting skills with his good looks and musical skills, making an entertaining and heartfelt. Nelson's TV guest spots turned into an important part of his career throughout. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, he played the notorious criminal Jesse James in And There Was an Episode of Hondo in the Another Old Western called The Over the Hill Gang, 1969, with veterans Walter Brennan and Patrick O'Brien, and kept making appearances in well-known shows like MLOUD, How the Streets of San Francisco Look, and Mario Marshall, lawyer at Petrocelli. A Twist in the Tale is one of them. An interesting guest spot on the Hardy Nelson liked the Nancy Drew Mysteries for Boys. Played the part of Tony Eagle. The episode not only had him acting, but also talked about his singing skills as he did some of his well-known songs. Hits that made fans of both of his as well as acting work. Nelson's presence looked beautiful on the beloved show The Love Boat, to his long list of different TV roles as his career went on into the 1980s. Nelson kept up with supporting parts in TV movies like the movies 3 on a Date and High School USA 1983, showing that his lasting charm and his skills kept him in demand. All different entertainment platforms, whether on the big screen or the little. Ricky Nelson had a busy and successful acting career. An active expansion of his many-sided, leaving behind a body of art from his teenage years in America. Ricky Nelson became one of the most adored teen idols from the millions of people with his clean cut. Think of a smooth voice and a boyish charm. With such fame came a lot of attention from fans, the press, and it wasn't surprised that he got those feelings. Ricky, like most of the young women teens, were eager to try out romantic. He was in a number of relationships. Girls during these important years, but despite how popular he is and freedom for Ricky's mom Harriet Nelson kept up a considerable had an effect on his personal life. Harriet was more than just a motherly figure, as well as his co-star on The Family, a long-running TV show called The Stories of AZ and Harriet, that she kept strong opinions about what is proper behavior and how important it is to keep a good public image, especially in the bright lights of Hollywood. Harriet didn't like many of the young people Ricky saw or brought home, women, and often felt like they didn't meet the standards she had set for. Not only did she worry about her son, nice manners, or class, but also about Ricky's. She thought his focus was on his career path, should keep their focus on making a long-lasting and well-known music career to act instead of getting sidetracked by short-term relationships. Her care could have come from both a mother's her gut feeling and her deep understanding of how fame could quickly ruin a young Ricky's life as a star. Being respectful of what his mother wanted, the conflict between what people want and expectations for work, this tension came up over and over in his teen years and early adulthood, but in the end, Ricky fell in love with a girl who seemed to meet with permission from Harriet, Kristen Criss. The wedding took place in April 1963 in a wedding that got a lot of attention, brought together two well-known American families. Criss was Heisman's daughter. Football star Tom Harmon has won a lot of awards. And 1940s movie actress Elise Knox. The Harmons had been friends with the people, saw Nelson's and the union as a natural and desirable match for two kids of famous people from Hollywood getting together in what many fans thought was a fairy tale wedding. Both families had a deep connection through fun and games. This marriage and public life in many way of doing things meant a continuation of their Ricky and Chris's children and grandchildren, having 4 kids together. Their first child, Tracy Christine Nelson, went after her, did what her father did, and became an actress, getting known for her parts in TV and movies, including the series After Father Dowling Mysteries. Criss was born with twin sons, Gunnar and Eric Matthew Gay Nelson, who got their musical talent from their father Grace and Charm in the early 1990s. The twins, their rock band, did well in the business world. Nelson, who was the first family act in history to have 3 generations of artists with the hit song, Can't Live Without Your Care and Love on top in 1990, the Billboard charts showed that Sam Hilliard, the couple's youngest child Nelson, was named after Ricky's dad. AZ Nelson, whose middle name was Hilliard, also made it into the He Did Some Arts but mostly stayed out of the shine compared to his siblings. Despite what seems like a perfect family problems, Ricky and Chris's marriage had more and more problems as the years went by. After, the strains began to get worse. The birth of their last child as changes in lifestyle and personal growth and the emotional gap began to grow. The time between them was when Ricky was on tour schedule and his desire to feel better. His music job kept him on the road a lot. Chris reportedly had a hard time with being responsible for and under pressure of things going on in her family life, cheating and getting more emotional disconnection of what seemed to be a beautiful union between two public figures slowly fell apart in private because of personal problems and priorities that don't agree. The couple's relationship got worse. Even more in the late 1970s and early 1980s, which led to separation and which led to a long and painful court case over child support, and the public thought that their divorce was final. In December 1982 marks the end of almost 20 years-long marriage, even though the proceedings were hard on her emotions, for it was only Ricky and Chris who stayed, cared about their kids and tried to keep their sense of stability up. Despite the problems in his family, Ricky in a person was deeply affected by the marriage fell apart, and contributed to some of the more sad themes in his later music for many years. Teen idol rock and Ricky Nelson fans, rock and roll pioneer and TV star, have thought about what might have happened about his sad and untimely death. Even though some things were known from the start, a lot of important questions lingered. Is it really a mechanical break that caused the plane crash that killed him? Was there something worse going on? The terrible events of that flight on December 31, 1985. Things that have been mysterious about his death was talked about in intense fascination and sadness after years of being interested in examination by experts, analysis, and new reported stories from witnesses. And within the story, the whole thing has finally come out into sharp focus. And what it shows is far from making sense. At the heart of the what is the small DC-3 plane that Ricky and his band were coming in by plane on their way to a concert. In early news reports from Dallas, Texas, said that a mechanical problem that might involve a not working heater or electrical short caused a fire on board, which the plane crashed near Dalb, Texas. Caught fire in the air, and while the two pilots miraculously made it through, Ricky Nelson, that he is engaged to Helen Blair, and 5 members of the band died in the fire. After the tragedy, rumors began to spread that some people are blaming drug use on others, point the finger at poor maintenance, while still others made guesses about secret plots or crimes. For years the cause was hidden by official not being clear about the national transportation. In the end, the safety board said that the fire began in the cabin, most likely because due to a broken heater, but they could not figure out the exact ignition. In the meantime, sources said rumors ran wild in the tabloids and among fans, letting cocaine float based on rumors that things used for drugs were found at the scene, added to a darker story that many people thought that unfairly ruined Nelson's picture. But toxicology reports showed Nelson has no drugs or alcohol in his body. And there was never any solid proof that the fire to drug use is still the cloud of. For decades, there was uncertainty, which a sore spot for his family and a scary question mark for fans. What finally brought an end to were a series of important discoveries made in investigations possible because aviation has stuck with it. People who study history, forensics, and there were reporters who were set on find the truth that was previously ignored. Technical records along with new interviews with mechanics who work on airplanes and the pilots who were still alive showed a much picture that is clearer and scarier than an airplane from World War II called a Douglas DC-3 had not been well taken care of and was working in a dangerous situation conditions, even though they knew about problems with the heater system over and over, issues that were known about and even been unhappy with on previous flights. The plane's crew didn't talk to them enough to be more damning. The heater had was set up in a way that made it a putting off repairs, like a ticking time bomb that didn't follow aviation safety rule standards. The heater was put in just under the floorboards of the cabin, close to materials that can catch fire, and when it broke down during the flight, started a fire that quickly grew to fill the cabin, filled with smoke and dangerous fumes. The not having a fire extinguisher on board and insulation that doesn't catch fire gave the Ricky Nelson and his passengers have no chance. Most likely, the others died from smoke inhalation before the plane crashed. Apparently, forensic reports say that the pilots got out of the plane through the cockpit, but it was dark inside for everyone. It was too late. What scared people the most wasn't only that the fire might have been stopped, but that people responsible because the plane knew it was risky that it could fly anyway. And now that we look back, the flight was a disaster. The final mystery is about to happen. Such a well-known person could die in a tragedy that could have been avoided, was finally replied, but not in the form of closure that brings peace. Instead, it has brought back sadness and anger. Ricky Nelson is a well-liked performer who had gone from being a child star to a musical No One or Nothing. Lost the legend. Failure but to careless behavior by people and oversight in the system. The truth is now out. It's hard to swallow bare because it paints a painful picture of unavoidable bad things happen and reminds us that even icons are at risk when those tasked with they mess up with their safety. Ricky Nelson's his legacy as a cultural figure lives on, but these facts about his death serve as a scary story meant to teach us a lesson. Once a mystery is solved, it doesn't always make you feel better. Sometimes they only make the tragedy worse. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories.